Many reports indicate that there is active civil war taking place in northern Ethiopia. The war is between the federal government led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the regional leaders of Tigray region. The war has entered the third week. Some of the refugees who fled to Sudan recount the horrors. Mihret, a 25-year-old nurse said, "We heard gunshots and bombs, we left all of the patients. Some of them were injured soldiers, some of them were women in labor. We left everyone. There is mass exodus and significant humanitarian crises. The fighting is still raging although casualties are hard to verify. So far, the international community has not done enough to mitigate the problem. There is total information blackout as the Ethiopian government has shut down communication. Ethnically motivated attacks have become common in Ethiopia. And the government has blamed various militias and armed groups." Kabane, a doctor from the border town of Harar who also fled, says that bombs had rained down on his home from 3 a.m. to 2 p.m. before he was forced to flee. He estimates around 2,000 people were killed in the city of Harar alone. "There were so many," he said. "I think maybe 40 explosions. There were about 50 injured in the hospital. I think many more died." There is also fear that Eritrea, which has a long history of hostilities with Tigray, is also being pulled into the conflict. So far, refugees from the Tigray region of Ethiopia are entering Sudan at increasing number. UN is gearing up for up to 200,000 Ethiopian refugees in Sudan. Based on limited eyewitness reports, there are gruesome level of attacks against civilians. There are alleged bombings, beatings, machete massacres, even ethnic cleansing. People who saw the bodies told Amnesty that they had gaping wounds that appear to have been inflicted by sharp weapons such as knives and machetes. As stated by Amnesty, "This is a horrific tragedy whose true extent only time will tell as communication in Tigray remains shut down," said Dipros Muchena, Amnesty International's director for East and Southern Africa. 3 people told Amnesty that survivors of the massacre told them that they were attacked by members of Tigray Special Police Force, a regional paramilitary who are now at war with Ethiopia. Others also report the Amhara militias are responsible for some of the civilian deaths. The conflict broke out on November 4 when the country's central government accused the region's local authorities of holding illegal elections and seizing a military base. Fighting the Tigrayans is the Ethiopian government led by Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister, who is using air force and federal forces at his disposal. Tigray is a mountainous region and has most battle-hardened fighters on the continent. The Tigrayan People's Liberation Front (TPLF) was an influential group that led Ethiopia for over 2 decades. They were deposed from power after youth-led protests. The TPLF then retreated back to its homeland, in Tigray region in the north. While the federal government postponed election due to COVID-19, the TPLF had regional election which angered the federal government of Ethiopia. Ahmed won the Nobel Prize for signing a historic peace deal with Eritrea shortly after he was elected amid a wave of hope in April 2018. But his sweeping reforms have marginalized the regional Tigrayan government, which once dominated the country's ruling coalition. Experts say the conflict could tear the country apart, unleashing catastrophic ethnic bloodshed, destabilizing the Horn of Africa and fracturing a key U.S. security ally. Ethiopia is now perched precariously on the ledge. All signs point to a country in a pre-genocide phase, Rashid Abdi, an independent expert on the Horn of Africa, wrote last week. The Tigray People's Liberation Front launched missiles at Asmara, the Eritrean capital, last week. With internet and phone lines cut in Tigray and a crackdown on media freedom across Ethiopia, it is impossible to know exactly what is really going on. It is thought that at least 35,000 people have fled across the border in the last week. At least 4,000 are crossing the border each day into Sudan. The Sudanese government has said it is bracing for 200,000 refugees in the coming days. Refugees walk for days to reach safety along paths once trodden by those fleeing the famine in the 80s. More than half of them are exhausted women and children, carrying almost nothing. Limited aid means people panic and rush, with refugees seizing what they could. Security had to interfere in some cases. Scuffles broke out before many desperate refugees were beaten back by security with rubber batons. The war in Ethiopia has the potential to destabilize the Horn of Africa region. And especially if the war drags on, it is likely to lead to significant human and property loss. And it will be a war that will further polarize the already fragile state of Ethiopia. Thanks for watching Harar Star. Subscribe, leave us comment.